Merry Christmas, folks!
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas.
It's Christmas Eve. A time of mystery.
Christoph the Polish Geek welcomes you to another You Should Be Watching video and the very last video of this year. So once again, folks, Merry Christmas, because for this You Should Be Watching video I decided to review A Christmas Carol from 1951 with Alistair Sim, because not only this is the greatest adaptation of the classic Charles Dickens novel, but it's actually my favorite Christmas movie of all time. From really good writing as well as spectacular performances, especially from Alistair Sim, as well as amazing Christmas music and a true Christmas spirit. Again, this is not just my favorite adaptation of the classic, but also my favorite Christmas movie of all time. Is it the most faithful Christmas Carol adaptation? No, objectively not. It is very faithful, but I wouldn't say that's the most faithful. The most faithful decidedly goes to the Patrick Stewart version. Like, the Patrick Stewart version is practically a word-for-word adaptation down to every detail. But who said that adaptation has to be an exact recreation of the book, especially when the changes in some ways actually enhance and make the story even richer and more compelling, which I very much consider in Alistair Sim Christmas Carol. And also, because I'm a fan of the Christmas Carol, it's my favorite Christmas story, what's interesting is that Robert Eggers is directing his own adaptation of the Christmas Carol, which I'm really excited about, because it seems like a really unique and interesting project for Robert Eggers to tackle on, so I'm very much looking forward to it. Will it be another very faithful retelling, or maybe Robert Eggers is gonna put a much darker and more gritty spin on a classic story, kind of similar to how the 2019 miniseries did? Knowing Robert Eggers and his style, I'm very much betting on the latter, but either way, I'm fully on board with that. Like, it's Robert Eggers, and I very much trust Robert Eggers. I mean, whatever decision he decides to make, I'm fully on board with this idea, and I'm totally gonna go and see this movie. Anything that Robert Eggers is doing, I'm fully on board with that. He's like one of the greatest modern directors, and so whatever decision he makes with the Christmas Carol, whether it's another very faithful retelling or more like a much darker and grittier spin on it, either way, I very much trust Robert Eggers, and I'm fully leaving it all in his hands. Just know that as long as Robert Eggers is doing anything, I'm fully on board with that, and I'm excited either way. Again, I trust Robert Eggers is gonna make the best decisions, so I'm leaving it all up to him. But Alistair Sim Christmas Carol is again my favorite Christmas movie of all time and the greatest adaptation of the Charles Dickens classic. I love A Christmas Carol. It's my favorite Christmas story. I remember reading the book back in my pre-teens, and already I was so enchanted by the beautiful story about redemption of a greedy old man who was visited by three spirits of Christmas, showing him the past, present, and Christmas yet to come, and what happened to Scrooge in the past as a result of his greedy nature, and what might happen to him in the future if Scrooge doesn't change his ways. And it's not like until like 9 years later that I would see this fantastic adaptation. At first, my favorite adaptation was the Patrick Stewart version, which I only seen like a year after reading the book. And also I later started loving the Jim Carrey version, and when I finally saw the Alistair Sim version, I finally knew what everyone was talking about. While Patrick Stewart version and Jim Carrey version are certainly objectively much more faithful to the actual text written by Charles Dickens, I think the Alistair Sim version is what you get when you actually have a good idea in mind, while still staying very much true to what Charles Dickens intended. For the most part, an Alistair Sim Christmas Carol, or Scrooge as it is called in England, is a pretty faithful adaptation, but it certainly does take some creative liberties with the source material. But in my opinion, it's one of those situations where the changes actually very much enhance and elevate the story rather than change it. I will actually address several of them and tell you why, in my opinion, those changes actually elevate a great story. One of the biggest changes is that in the original book, Fan is a younger sister of Ebenezer Scrooge, but in this version, she's changed to an older sister, which I think makes perfect sense for the story and context, because in the book, young Ebenezer Scrooge stays at boarding school for Christmas because his father hates him ever since Scrooge's mother died, which is never explained why. In the movie, it's revealed that Ebenezer's mother died while giving birth to him, which very much explains why the father resents him so much, and it very much makes sense to make Fan an older sister in that case. And it also brings us to a next change, which involves a whole expansion of Scrooge's backstory. We'll talk of other details later, like the one we'll talk about now very much ties into what we already spoke about. In the book, it is stated that Fan died very young while leaving behind her baby son Fred, whom Scrooge very much despises. In the movie, Fan, just as her mother and Scrooge's mother, dies in childbirth while giving birth to Fred, and Scrooge now resents his nephew in a similar way as his own father resented him. History truly repeats itself. While things obviously did happen in the books, the changes to the source material that the movie made very much give all those things an entirely new meaning and makes the writing so much better.
Forgive me, Fan. Forgive me. Forgive me, Fan.
As I just said, whole backstory of Ebenezer Scrooge is expanded, and we actually do see what changed Scrooge from a spirited, positive young boy who loved his friends to a cold-hearted, greedy man who started to love money more than people. We see his actual friendship with Jacob Marley, because in the book, the only thing we see about Marley is that we know he's dead in the beginning and then him visiting Scrooge as a ghost, but in this adaptation, we do actually see their whole friendship together, and I think it's so well done, as well as their rise in business, and later we do even see the death of Jacob Marley. While this all doesn't really drastically change the story, but very much gives it far more context and very much elevates it. But that also brings me to another point actually, because this is something that almost all adaptations miss, except the George C. Scott adaptation, but the scene when Belle, Ebenezer's fiancée, releases him from his vow and abandons him is very much in this adaptation, like it is in almost all the adaptations. I mean, it's too important not to be included, but in the book actually, the next vision that Scrooge is shown by the Ghost of Christmas Past is that Belle is married to an entirely different man and has a bunch of kids with him, which...
Fancy. It might have been mine.
The same thought occurred to me.
Almost all the adaptations, except the George C. Scott one, very much don't show. And this one doesn't either. But instead, though, it does show that in contrast to Scrooge, Belle, on the other hand, is a very kind-hearted woman who still does her best to help the poor, and that is shown in the Christmas present sequence. I admit, I do think it would be beneficial to actually still show the vision of her having a bunch of kids, but oh well, can't have everything.
This is the happiest Christmas I ever had.
Almost all of the important scenes from the book are generally in the movie. Like the ghost of Jacob Marley sequence is truly haunting and intimidating. What is even more intimidating is Ebenezer Scrooge looking out the window and seeing a lot of ghosts like Marley trying to help people but being punished for all eternity. Like this sequence is pretty haunting in most adaptations, but I say this adaptation manages to make it the most creepy, haunting and amazingly done. Another super amazing thing in this adaptation is the music.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
I love the music in this movie. Like the Jim Carrey version, for example, also had pretty amazing music, but it was classic Christmas music that you could see in plenty of Christmas movies. But the Alistair Sim version has very much music of its own, and while it very much fits for the story about Christmas, it also is very much a music specific to this movie. Every sound is just so memorable and so atmospheric, and this is just one of those movies that each individual scene has kind of a different soundtrack fitting perfectly with the scene that is now happening. What also has to be complimented is the amazing Oscar-worthy performance of Alistair Sim, whose performance could be talked all on its own. Alistair Sim truly gave a life to Ebenezer Scrooge. The way he performs is just rarely seen these days. He very much plays a cold-hearted man that Scrooge is, but with decidedly visible inner pain that is clearly very much inside the old man. Let's use Jim Carrey or George C. Scott. Their Scrooge was just a cliché, greedy, cold-hearted old man who absolutely made you feeling nothing but disgust. But with Alistair Sim, you can truly tell how deep inside Ebenezer Scrooge really is a very, very miserable man. And even before Christmas Past sequence, you can just tell by the way he talks, interacts with people, and this is all thanks to the fantastic performance of Alistair Sim.
Love you. I came here in the spirit of right goodwill, and I won't let you dampen it. So a Merry Christmas to you anyway, Uncle.
Good evening.
And a Happy New Year.
Good evening. Humbug!
The 1951 Christmas Carol with Alistair Sim truly is my favorite adaptation of the classic Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, as well as my favorite Christmas movie of all time. And while it is very much a faithful retelling, the changes that it makes to the original story actually very much elevate an already amazing story and give it an entirely new meaning, and combine that with really spectacular performances, especially from Alistair Sim, as well as beautiful Christmas music and a true spirit of Christmas. And again, no, you don't, not only you have the best adaptation of the classic Charles Dickens novel, but you also have my favorite Christmas movie of all time. Although, who knows, maybe the Robert Eggers version will give it competition. I strongly doubt that, but I'm very much looking forward to see the Robert Eggers take on a classic, and again, whatever decision he makes, I'm fully on board with that. I very much trust Robert Eggers will make a good decision, and I really can't wait to see his take on the Christmas Carol. But again, ladies and gentlemen, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and this is the last video for this year actually. So, once again, Merry Christmas folks, and see you in the new year. So, Happy New Year everybody!